Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're going to continue with a new project. We're going to be doing a medieval flag banner. And I want to show you a couple of things with this exercise. First of all, how to import a model, because one of the great things about Marvel's Designer is that you can actually import other models from other software such as Blender, Maya, 3D Studio Max, and get it in here. Now, for this first one, I'm actually going to be providing you with the one that you need. So you're going to go File, Import, FBX, and if you go to your folders, you're going to have this one called Banner Hanger. I'm going to hit Open. Now, very important, as an FBX, there's a couple of options that you can import. Right now, we don't want animation, we don't want any cache animation, and we do want to automatically add arrangement points, just in case you can figure out how to play some cool arrangement points. The scale is very important here. You might think that we need to do this in millimeters because that's the default, right? But no, actually, when we model this in other softwares, in this case, I modeled this in Maya, we need to change this to centimeters so that it knows that it needs to do the proper position. So let me hit OK, and this is it, okay? So now this object right here is just a hanger. You can move it up and down, and we're going to be using this to create our garments. Or not the garments, in this case, a medieval flag, right? So one cool thing I want to show you here is usually in other softwares, when you're doing any sort of simulation work, you have to set up the proper like collision boxes and stuff to make sure that things like collide in the best possible way. In this case, that's not necessary. I can just simulate this, and as you can see, well, let's reset the 3D point here. Let's go here, and if I simulate, you can see that it already knows that it needs to have right here. So Marvel Designer, even though it's meant to be a software to create cloth for characters, you can actually do a lot of things like bed sheets, curtains, tablecloths, napkins. Like there's so many things, so many easy things that would be a little bit more time consuming to do in other softwares. And that's what I want to talk about today. So I want to do a banner, and I'm thinking about doing a banner, like imagine just a little banner, like a medieval banner. I want this to be, of course, like square, but I want it to have like some sort of like flares down here, maybe like triangles or something. And I want to have 3 divisions right here, like 3 little cylinders that are the ones that go through a loop, and they create the intersection. Another thing that I want to do, actually, now that I think of it, let's get rid of these things. Let's do a little bit more of an interesting shape. So let's go back to our brush. So I want to do like a traditional like triangular shape right here. And one of the things that we normally see with these things is like an inner trim, like a golden trim or something. So I'm definitely going to add some sort of like inner border like this. And I want to show you like some free design. Like we're not using any pattern, we're not using anything. I just want to create something that looks cool. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to create the first half of my element. So I think something like this should be more than enough. I'm going to bring this thing closer to the center so that it's aligned. And then we're going to use the same trick that we did before for the pillow. So I'm going to go here to edit pattern, grab this intersection, right click, and we're going to unfold. Now, do we want to do unfold with symmetric editing? Yes, because if we move one side, we want the other side to move as well. So now we can go up to this point and we can just move this up to create the triangular shape. Look at that. Amazing. Amazing. It looks already very close to how we want it. Now that I have the shape, and after I move these 2 points up and down, I actually want to remove the light editing. So I'm going to select the piece, right click, and we're going to say remove linked editing. That way we have the shape similar to what we had on the element. Now the first challenge that we have is, well, I want to add the divisions over here, but I want to add them in such a way that they have the same distance, right? Right now we have halves, but I would like to divide this in a couple more sections so that this works a little bit better. So the first thing I need to do is I need to go to edit curve points, select that point right there, and just delete it. That way we have a clean section over here. Then I'm going to go into edit pattern, select this line again, and there's a really cool tool here called insert point or something. Split. There we go, split. So in the split line, we can split this into 2 segments. That's the most common one, as you can see. Right now, the ratio is not like even. I will have to change this to 50 and 50. But if you want to do like 40 and 60, 30 and 70, you can change the ratio here. We can do by length. So if we want to have like specific lengths for each segment, we could also do that. Or the one that I like the most, which is this one called a uniform split, which as you can see will give me, in this case, 2 splits. So we want 3, 4, 5, and that's it. Why 5? Because there's going to be 1 section here, 1 section here, and 1 section here. And as you can see, all of the sections right now share the same length. So I know that my pattern is going to be very symmetrical, very nice looking. So I'm going to hit OK, and there we go. We have points there. Now, why do we need the points? Why are these points important? Because we're going to be using the sew sections, this one right here, segment sewing, and that's going to allow us to make sure that only this section, the specific section, gets the proper size that we want. Now, I'm gonna go into my polygon tool, I'm gonna select polygon, and I'm gonna click. I'm not gonna, or actually, let me go back here, cancel. First, I'm gonna go to my segment tool and I'm gonna measure how long this segment measures. And as you can see, it's 124.9 millimeters, which is 12.5 centimeters pretty much, right? So I'm gonna go here to my rectangle tool, click, and I'm gonna say, hey, I want the width of this thing to be 124.9. And the height, 50 millimeters is, I think, way too much. So let's do something like 200 in this case, which is 20 centimeters, right? I'm gonna hit OK. So now I know that this thing is gonna drape over this thing, and we're gonna create this cylinder. And it should be fairly easy to do this. I just need to grab the segment sewing tool and sew this from here to here and from here to the same position, because the front side and the back side, they're both gonna be at the same place. And as you can see, when this thing gets sewn into the object, it should fall exactly where we want it, right? Now, to help the simulation, I'm actually gonna bring this thing like super close to the rod right there, this one as well, because the longer it needs for this, or the longer this thing needs to travel, the more like common it is to get like some mistakes. So I'm gonna grab this pattern now. I'm gonna say Control C, Control B, paste it right here, Control C, Control B, and paste it right here. Now, as you can see, these do not share. When I do a normal like copy and paste, these do not share the sewing lines, which is really handy, because that means that we can create new sewing lines from this section to this section, and from that section there, from there, and from there to there. So now when we simulate, look at this. Ta-da! We get this very cool looking banner on our element. And at any point, I can just move this around, change again the particle density, and start like giving it more and more weight. However, we're not done. We want to make these things look cooler, right? We want to make this look a little bit more interesting. So the first thing I can do is I can actually transform these patterns. I can just select all of them and right click, or not just normal click, and move these things around. But as you can see, if I do this, one pattern is going to be slightly bigger than the other one, I think. Let me just compare. No, it did it properly. So now, since the patterns are bigger and the sewing line is still the same, we're going to get the exact same thing we saw on the pillow in the last video, where we're going to get a couple more wrinkles. Why? Because there's more cloth. So you can see we get a couple more wrinkles there. So go crazy here. Like if you want to go like really crazy on the size of these things, just go crazy. That's fine. Because when we simulate, all of this are going to get like really crunched out, and we're going to start getting this interesting effect. Now, careful here, of course, we don't want to get inside of the rod right there. But yeah, we can change these things around, and as you can see, we're gonna get this sort of like crunchy effect. Now remember what we talked about on how to make things like go closer together? That was with the warp and the weft, right? So weft, left to right. Let's select all of them. Let's give them a little bit of weft. So let's say something like 90. So now, maybe a little bit more. We could also use the elastic. Remember, we saw that one last time. So maybe if we do a little bit of elastic, probably to like a 95. That might help us get like a nicer effect. Now, we also know, and this is very important, that the particle distance is going to play an important factor in how many or how nice the wrinkles look over here. And we've talked about this before. These are small pieces. So if we turn on this mesh thing, you're going to see that we're actually like really low on triangles to get like a nice deformation. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to grab all of this, guys, and then on the particle distance, bring this thing down a little bit more. So let's select all of them, and particle distance, let's bring them down to 10. So it's going to give us more definition, and by obvious result, it's going to give us this very nice effect on the top area, which is something you normally see in curtains and stuff, right? And we can bring this even lower, but I think that's fair enough for now. And look how nice the banner is just looking from one side to the other. Very cool, right? Now, that's not it. We wanna create some more details on this guy. So let's stop the simulation and let's work on the intersections. Like I want to do some sort of like gold trim on the inside. So I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna say offset pattern outline. But I'm not gonna do pattern outline to the outside like we did with the heart. I'm actually gonna go with the internal line right here. It's gonna give me this thing. It's distance. It's how far from the edge do you want to place this new internal line. In this case, I do want to go a little bit far, so I'm gonna say something like 50 millimeters, probably a little bit more, probably like 100 millimeters. There we go. That looks a little bit better. Maybe too much. Let's say 80 millimeters. And right now, I just want one offset, because if I say two offsets, the second offset, it's also going to be 80 millimeters. And I might not want that, right? I might just want one section of the element to be like slightly higher or lower. So in this case, I'm just going to do one, and I'm going to hit OK. And now we have an internal line. We select that internal line and we can do the same thing. We can just right click and say offset as internal line. And this one, let's say just 30 millimeters. It's going to be a slim trim on the inside like this. Look at that. Now, if we simulate, this is not really going to change things as much. Yes, we're going to see a little bit more of a crease. And this is something that it took me a little bit of time to understand, but whenever you add an internal line here inside of Marvelous Designer, it's pretty much like adding a support edge inside of other softwares like Blender and Maya. Because what this is doing is it is actually modifying the topology. So for instance, all of the triangles here, the like flat side of the triangle is aligned to this new line. So it will make it look sharper, even though we haven't cut this piece. There's no sewing lines or anything. It's just an internal line, but it will make this thing look like sharper. So keep in mind that internal lines in your geometry, in your patterns, will change the way things look inside of Marvelous Designer. So now I do want to cut it. So I'm gonna go here to the sections. I'm gonna grab this guy, right click. I'm gonna say cut and sew, and then select this guy. Do the same thing, cut and sew. So now we should have 3 patterns. This pattern right here, this pattern right here. Oh, not that one. This one. Let me see. Sometimes it's easier to move the other one. There we go. So it's the big pattern, the small pattern, and then the inner pattern. Let me save real quick. So I'm gonna go File, Save, Save As. Make sure you save as, and this is gonna be called Banner. There we go. And now we can start playing around with some of the elements here. So for instance, what if we wanted this line to be just slightly bigger, right? You know what happens when we do this, right? Since it's slightly bigger, we're gonna get a couple of extra wrinkles here and there. And this is something I would expect to see on this for banners because it's gonna give us this very, very cool effect. Now we're in a position where things are looking quite nice. Usually these banners, though, they tend to have a hemline, it's called, right? It's like this support on the outside where the cloth is sewn onto itself so that the little threads are not loose and you get like a nice little border. So let's add that sort of shape. I'm going to show you another cool trick here. So I'm going to offset another internal line right here. Not as much. 30 is way too much. And in this case, as you can see, it's trying to offset on the inside as well. That's fine. I'm going to say just 10 millimeters should be fine. Just hit OK. And now you can see we have this internal line. This one. Oh, it's shape 2, not shape 1. So shape 1. I'm going to right click. I'm going to delete that one because I just want the outside one. This one. Okay. Now I'm going to select this piece right here, the whole pattern. I'm going to select the whole pattern. I'm going to press Ctrl-C, Ctrl-B to duplicate this, and then I'm going to select that line that we just created, right click, cut and sew, and this guy we just delete. So we've just created this very nice little trim right here that's going to be very useful to sew on top of this top line. So I'm going to go to my segment sewing. I'm going to say, okay, you are going to go there, you are going to go there, you are going to go. Oh, sorry. That was my bad. It's not there. It's actually from here to this upper line, from here to this inner line, and then from here, 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 and here. Am I sewing this correctly? Let me just go back because I think I selected things in the wrong way. Let's go here. You can see the trim right here. So this trim, we want to sew to the outside of the element. There we go. So let's start with the outside part. I think that's going to be a little bit easier. And I'm actually going to use the free sewing tool. I think it's going to make it faster. So I'm going to go here to free sewing tool. I'm going to go to the border here. Oh, so there. Let's go around, down, around, down. There we go. So that's one. And we're going to go to this side. There we go. So now you can see the whole trim is sewn into the little border there. And we can do the same thing from like there. Oh. Again, let's zoom in a little bit so we can see it better. There we go. That's the whole line. You need to follow the same direction though. This is very important. A lot of people make this mistake. So if I'm starting here and I'm going like there, 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 and all the way up. That's the first one. And I need to follow the same path over here, because if I do any different path, see, like that one right there, it might do it like the wrong way. Oh, there we go. So just double check here that the sewing lines look good. They do. So we're just gonna simulate, and now we have that extra hem right there, like an extra little line. There's a little bit of a conflict there. We just pull it and tuck it a little bit to give it more effect. And that's the line. Again, that's a very small piece of geometry, right? So that definitely means that for this one, we definitely want to have a lot more particle distance. I'm actually going to go all the way down to 5, because I really need this to be like low. I'm a little bit concerned about that line. Let's simulate real quick. There we go. So now you can see our hemline is looking quite nice there. It's trying to solve itself or sort itself out. Sometimes you're gonna get some of those little effects. That's fine. Just give it a couple of like a little bit of time for it to properly adjust. We might need more resolution somewhere else as well, but as you can see, that's looking quite nice. So imagine this thing on a video game. Like, I'm just gonna stop the simulation. Imagine this thing on a video game with all of those wrinkles, or on a movie, especially if it's not moving that much. It's gonna give you a great result. So yeah, that's the whole thing. I'm actually gonna go here, and I don't want to show internal lines. There we go. So now we can see this cloth a lot better. Now I'm gonna show you a couple of extra tricks here. First, let's go with fabrics. I'm probably gonna do like a cotton fabric for the main thing. So let's do like cotton. There we go. So it looks a little bit velvety, but looks nice. Has some spandex though. Let's see. I think this one's a little bit closer to woven. So I'm gonna go here. Let's add this, and let's add it to the patterns. It's gonna be there, up here, and up here, and of course on this little border right here. Look at that nice border. That border, by the way, is called the hem. Let me show you real quick. So tailoring, it's called the hem, and the hem is like this. Again, the border where you sew the end of the fabric to make sure that that the little like things are not like falling out or anything. It's very common. Pretty much every single clothing piece or garment will have a hem. Otherwise, the fabric just gets wild. So yeah, this is looking nice. Now I'm definitely gonna change the color, right? Because this color looks really bad. So I'm gonna go with like a green, like a next to green. There we go, something like that. Perfect. And now I'm gonna look for a silk. Give me just 1 second. Cool. So now for the next part, we're actually going to be using a material that we are going to create. We're not going to be using any cloth. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to add a new material. I'm going to call this material gold trim. Like that. And we're going to talk about materials later on when we talk about rendering. I'm actually going to show you guys in the final chapter how to bring all of these garments into 3 different places. We're going to bring them into Marmoset, we're going to bring them into Maya, and we're going to be bringing them into Blender, depending on which software you guys use. And we are going to have to, of course, to set up the materials specifically for each software. So in this case, the only thing I need to do is change this thing, the color, to like a gold, nice gold color like this. Assign it to the nice little trim here, and we can actually change here the metalness. So I'm going to bring the metalness all the way up, and it's going to give this sort of like metallic look. This is not PBR, this is not like a what's the word, like a ray tracing render or anything, but it's going to look quite nice. So now we can simulate, and as you can see, we have this very nice like banner ready to go. We can add more textile stuff. We're gonna again talk about textures later on. We can add like a stencil here, but right now I just want to show you one last thing, which is a wind, which is really cool, especially for this kind of things. So I'm gonna go here to the display options, and I'm gonna go to the environment. And if we go into the environment, there's an option called here show wind controller. By default, there's no wind. So right now, there's pretty much no wind. But we can activate the wind, and the only way, or the only thing we need to do is just press this little button right here to activate. And as you can see, now we have wind inside of our scene. Now, of course, this is way too much. As you can see, it's a little bit extreme. So let's do a Control C there. I'm gonna go to the wind, and I'm gonna reduce the strength to, let's say, 200. It should be a little bit more like a workable. And of course, we can at any point just like move and transition our things right here. Careful here with moving things a little bit too like fast or hard. That makes it a little bit difficult for Marvelous to really process the way things should be. So let's try and bring this thing. Like if you cross the sections, sometimes that like brings the cloth back to where it's supposed to be. If not, we're gonna have to reset the 3D garment and just restart, which might be what we're gonna have to do for this particular piece because it's going a little bit crazy. But before we do that, I just want to mention that here in the wind, the direction of the wind is opposite to where this thing is. And there's a couple of things that you can change. You can change the frequency, you can change the turbulence. Of course, as we mentioned, the intensity here. So let's bring it down to 100, so it's a lot less intense. And you're gonna have a little bit of wind. Technically, we can export this animation, so if you create like a nice animation and then you want to use it inside of Maya or Blender or any other softwares, it is possible to do it. But if not, it's always nice to see this as a nice little reference to make sure that everything is working and being modified in a nice way. Let's straighten this out so that we can see the little like corner there, the little pointy end. And there we go. That's our banner, guys. So this is a basic exercise I want to show you on this first chapter, just to get like acquainted with the general workflow and tools that we're going to be using here inside of Marvelous Designer. Now, as you know, the way we like to structure the courses is by going like incrementally into harder and harder elements. So in the next chapter, we're going to be doing a basic woman's garment. We're going to be doing a school uniform. So yeah, hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next one. Bye-bye.